Welcome to Veterans United, a program sponsored by the Firewatch, Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. I'm Nick Howland, Navy veteran, your host, and Executive Director of the Firewatch. In this program, you'll meet 2 or 3 veterans who will share their challenges and experiences since leaving active duty. You'll also meet a couple civilians who are doing great things for veterans here in Northeast Florida. In the meantime, you can help. There's a role for everybody. Visit thefirewatch.org and register as a watchstander. Learn to identify the risk signs of veterans in crisis. Learn to get veterans the help they need. Together, we can end veteran suicide here in Northeast Florida. Enjoy the program. Welcome to another episode of From the C-Suite to the C-Suite, a program sponsored by the Firewatch and focused on highlighting the experiences of veterans who have had successful transitions from active duty military to the civilian world. And hopefully those that will come after them can learn a thing or two. We are delighted to have with us Dino Gulieta of Entrado Communications, and I'll just call him G-Man for short because before the program he told me everyone calls him G-Man because they have difficulty pronouncing that last name. So Dino, G-Man, thanks for being with us today.
And thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about Entrado Communications and what you do.
So Entrado is the nation's 911. Basically, we provide the infrastructure for the U.S. and emergency services or safety services. So if you dial 911, Entrado is behind most of the emergency centers and the PSAPs to handle all of that data on your profile so that we can get emergency services, first responders out to your site. That's one of our core businesses, and that's probably what we're known for out there in the public or in the telecom carrier space. But I run on the telecommunication side, so alongside of that, you need the telecom infrastructure. And Entrado supports billions of minutes per month in communication services across multiple platforms. So if you're dialing from a Verizon wireless phone, you're dialing a 1-800 support number. Yep. Most likely those numbers will arrive at Entrado, and we will route advance and support that call flow downstream to reach its destination.
That's pretty cool, G-Man, because you're basically helping protect people, being the back-end infrastructure of 911. In a similar way that you did when you were in the military. I mean, in the military, for all intents and purposes, we are out there doing, protecting folks. Tell me a little bit about your time in the military. As I understand, Army and you were infantry. Is that correct?
Army, yes. Artillery. So
artillery, got it.
I think my MOS is defunct. It was a 13 Echo fire direction specialist. Supported the artillery units, either whether an 8 or 12 howitzer division, and we basically ran communications between all the guns and back to ad hocs or forward observers, all those foxtrots out there sending coordinates, fire for effect.
Okay.
So the most part we were intaking a lot of information, plugging that away and spitting out fire coordinates, fire missions for artillery units.
Okay, so that MOS did have a little bit to do with your civilian career in telecommunications. Tell us about, oddly enough.
It looks like that, yeah.
Well, tell me about that transition. Like how you got out and how you ended up at Entrado and some of the challenges you faced on the way.
So Entrado was not my first stop. Entrado, I've been here for 10 years. Okay. I got out in roughly around 92. So you could say that working in the military, I sort of gained some disciplines and understandings. But obviously, as a veteran, you can't just go around telling civilian HR departments that you blow things up. That's just not going to work anymore. So just sort of understanding the skill sets of coordinating communications, connecting, even if it was a little, wire to a back of a post, and setting up antennas. I think most civilians understand that as a communications role. And then, of course, the disciplines that come with the military, which aren't always apparent in civilian jobs, but they do need a lot of organization. So I would say that kind of helped me get into some of these initial companies like MCI, Sprint, where's my first stop. And then you learn on the job, right? Because this is a completely different skill set that you have to learn in corporate. But I think the military gave me sort of that no fear. If I put that out there, most of us are probably not afraid of taking on challenges, and I think that helped me transition.
Yeah, then I mean that's great advice there. But if you could give one piece of advice to someone who might be following your footsteps, because even though your MOS may not be active in the military, there's so many across the four services that parlay exactly into the same skill sets that you have. I mean, in the Navy, I was a communications officer and had a bunch of radiomen. I don't think even radiomen have that rate anymore in the Navy. It's now information systems IS or something like that. But there's a lot of folks who bring the skill sets you have and are looking to transition. So what kind of advice could you give them?
Yeah, I think if your MOS today or your occupation in the military is technical, being that we're dealing with technology, with a weapons specialist or you say an artillery unit or a drone, either way, that technology is engineering based. And I think in the civilian world, we're really engineers. And so as much as we're operators in our camouflage stuff, we're still engineering solutions and getting through challenges. I think that was one thing that I had to realize, how I stated what I was able to do physically and mentally into a corporate role. And the HR departments want to see that you have the ability to sort of transition. They don't want to hear about you shooting people or shooting targets. Nobody cares about that in the HR world.
For sure. No, that's great advice. And probably people probably could learn a lot about what you do now and how that would translate into how they could translate their skill sets into that kind of work by visiting Entrado Communications website and learning about it. How would they do that? Do you know the URL offhand?
Entrado.com, INTRADO. We also have supported trainourtroops.com. So we do support veterans, and just want to put that out there. And so I think it's important that if you're going to go into these careers and you have no clue where to start, you can look at the job descriptions, sort of do your own mapping, feel it out, and then try to get some interviews. It's hard when you upload resumes. There's just so many. They use software now that sort of filters for keywords. So that's the key, is to find the keywords in your resume that will resonate with the job description. Make it relevant. Don't say you worked at McDonald's and you're trying to get a job at an IT company.
Gosh,
so just
Dino, that's such great advice. Yeah, 100% agreed.
I think it's important for veterans to sort of present that team building skills that we learned, right? And as much as we were joking around, right, we were pulling each other, but that's what corporate America needs. They need teams.
100%. Dino Gulieta, thank you so much for being on From the C-Suite to the C-Suite. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Take care.
Well, you heard it here from Dino Gulieta at Entrado Communications. You know, how to help fashion your career, your resume and your skill set into a civilian career. And that's what we try to impart at From the C-Suite to the C-Suite. Why? Because that transition from active duty to veteran status is one of the most vulnerable in a veteran's career. And the Northeast Florida Fire Watch is all about ending veteran suicide. There's a role for everybody to play. Visit thefirewatch.org and learn how you can help. Together, we will end veteran suicide.
Hello, I'm John Rutherford from the United States House of Representatives, and I am a watchstander.
Hi, I'm Michelle McManaman from Operation Uniform, and I am a watchstander, and so is everyone in my organization.
I'm Damika Jackson. I'm the president of the Jacksonville Veterans Chamber of Commerce, and I am a watchstander.
Hi, I'm Luke Lewis with Xera Realty.
I am Ant Stroud with the Ant Stroud Group.
I'm Bruce Thompson. I'm the vice president of the Veterans Chamber of Commerce.
And I am a watchstander.
I am a watchstander. I'm a watchstander.
Each year, over 6,000 U.S. military veterans take their own lives, including one per week in Northeast Florida. The Fire Watch is our community's fight to end veteran suicide. Join us. Become a watchstander today at thefirewatch.org. Together, we will end veteran suicide.
Hey family, welcome back to Buzzworthy Veterans. I'm your host, Ant Stroud. Today I have the honors of sitting next to Annette Harris with Harris Financial Coaching. Annette, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so before we jump into money talk, so we all love money talk and how that actually came about, tell me about your military service.
Okay, I was in the United States Army for 8 years, and during that time I was a logistics sergeant, so the supply chain, and I was stationed in Fort Gordon, Georgia, and Fort Stewart, Georgia, and I also did a tour in Afghanistan and Iraq as well.
Wow, well, thank you for that. I didn't have the I didn't have the opportunity to go over there and serve in that capacity, so thank you for that. Tell me, when you were in Georgia, where are you originally from?
I am from Waynesboro, Georgia.
Okay, so you got to stay in the same state.
Yes.
It wasn't a big of a shock to you or anything like that.
Yes, I wasn't far from home.
How did you end up here in Jacksonville?
So my husband is originally from Orlando, Florida, so we decided to move in the middle of both of our families, and this was where we decided to come. And it's a military town, so we just wanted to stay near the military and the VA. Absolutely.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for your service, and I know you're continuing to help the community. So before we jump into that, tell me about financial coaching.
So with financial coaching in the community, what I currently do is I offer pro bono services to a nonprofit. It's individuals with disabilities, low-income individuals, and veterans as well. So I offer my personal financial coaching services to them. And I also just recently became certified to become a volunteer income tax assistant. So I have reached out so that I can start being involved in that as well.
Oh my God, that's awesome. And I know with all the different tax regulations and stuff like that, having a sound person there to help you, guide you through that, that's an amazing experience. So thanks for helping the community out with that. But tell me about the coaching business.
So the coaching business, what I currently do is I help individuals basically achieve their financial goals. They have a goal of where they currently are, and my goal is to help them to bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to be. So how I do that is I work with individuals on retirement planning, making decisions regarding their careers. There's times when we have W-4s when we're working for a new employer and you don't know how to fill that out. So I work with individuals to help them make the best decision for them in filling out that W-4, and also wealth building. If they want to build a savings or learn how to budget, I work with them and just guide them down the right path and to deciding what their weekly budget is, what their monthly budget is, so that they can put themselves in a better situation financially.
Perfect. So it's not like you have to be in trouble to come find you and you help them out of the trouble. You can be perfectly fine, but have a specific goal you want and you can help them guide them to that.
Correct. Just building wealth, generational wealth is a big one as well. Just educating people and having them to pass that on to their children, just so that they're in a better financial situation. Just in achieving a goal. It could be a small goal, which is saving $500. I help them put a plan in place for that so that they can achieve that goal. Or it could be setting up a college fund for their children or themselves, just giving them the resources that they need in order to achieve those goals.
Gotcha. Now, I know the story how this whole came about because I had the privilege of talking with you offset. But I want the family members to know, how did this business idea and ultimately come about?
So it originally came about, I have a passion for personal finance. It started at a young age with my mother encouraging me to enroll in a personal finance course when I was in high school. And also just watching her manage her finances and people coming to her for her assistance. So I recently started this business in January, and it came about because of Clubhouse. I was on Clubhouse and I was listening to all of the entrepreneurs in the different rooms, and they just inspired me. I told one of them, I think it's too late for me to start this business in my life. And she was like, it's never too late. So I put that plan into action on January 18th, and that's where everything just evolved from there.
Well, I'm so glad that you took that person's advice, especially for our veterans out there who've gotten out of the military and, they're just kind of stumbling through life right now trying to get their grasp. It's never too late, whether it was a 20-year retirement or a 4-year contract. It's never too late to start something you're passionate about.
Yes, and I do appreciate that individual for telling me that. And I have had so many people reach out to me, from the nonprofit sector, just asking for my guidance and support. And I just love giving back.
Well, I appreciate you, what you do, and giving back to our community. If anybody wanted to reach out to you, how could they get a hold of you?
So they can go to my website. It's www.harriswealthcoach.com. And on there is also my social media platforms as well. So if there's something that I didn't discuss here today, they can also look at the other services or just schedule a quick 15-minute free consultation so we can discuss their financial goals.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the family.
Thank you for having me.
All right, family, if you want to learn more about Harris Financial Coaching, please visit iwannabuzz.com. That's going to do it for this episode of Buzzworthy Veterans. I'm your host, Ant Stroud. And remember, always vets, always family. I'll see you next time.
Welcome to another episode of From the C-Suite to the C-Suite, this one done remotely. I'm your host, Nick Howland, Executive Director of the Firewatch, Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. This program is about highlighting the experiences of veterans who have successfully transitioned from active duty military to civilian life. And in particular, that's a vulnerable point for a veteran. And if we can highlight the successes and the experiences, and maybe veterans who are in the middle of job seeking right now could learn something, I think we've done a great thing. So with me today is a special guest, a great guest. We had an opportunity to chat before the show, Kevin Patrick of Magna Publications. Kevin, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Nick, for having me. I'm very excited about this opportunity.
Terrific. Well, Kevin, you are with Magna Publications, and before that, you had a whole career, 30 years. Before that, you did 21 years in the Navy. Let's get into all that, but first tell us a little bit about Magna.
Magna Publications is a company that creates courses and trainings for faculty members in colleges and universities primarily, and also, tech schools, and in some cases, even high schools. So we do, basically I'm dealing with educators and people like academic deans and centers for teaching and learning, and we're offering them online products so that they can, or resources, so that the faculty can continue their learning. And that's basically what we do. We also have conferences, but it's sort of all-encompassing training for colleges and universities.
And you mentioned to me that Magna is veteran-owned.
Yes, it is. It's a veteran-owned company. Bill Haight, who's the president, is a veteran, and this is a small business, so he's a small business owner as well. Magna's located in Madison, Wisconsin. I am not. I'm located in Jacksonville, Florida.
Well, thank you both for your service. And let's highlight that service. So let's go back. You did 21 years in the Navy. What was your rate? What were the highlights of your career?
Well, I started out as a hospital corpsman. I entered the service in 1969 as a hospital corpsman and was a surgical technician, eye, ear, nose, and throat surgical tech, and clinical tech. And then after 4 years, as a lot of people did, I got out and tried to make my way in the civilian world. And what I found is that I was well prepared, but I didn't do a good plan on using everything the Navy had taught me. So I ended up going back in about 20 months later, and as a hospital corpsman. And after about a year, I found that I wasn't any farther along than when I had gotten out previously. So I put into switch rates, became a cryptologic technician interpretive, a Russian linguist, and did that for 6 years. And then at the end of that, yeah, I know, worked at NSA, a lot of other stuff that if I told you about, I'd have to kill me. Wait a minute, maybe I got that wrong. Anyway.
No, better than me.
Okay. Anyway, it was a great time. I spent time in Turkey, spent time in Guam. And after a while, I realized that what I really enjoyed doing was helping my shipmates to determine what they wanted to do. So I switched again to Navy counselor and became first I did recruiting in the Chicago district for 3 years, and then switched to career counselor. My first job as a career counselor was on the USS Dubuque LPD-8, and it was in Sasebo, Japan at the time. And that was my first true shipboard duty after about 12 years in the Navy. So that made it an interesting experience for me. And I went out as a first class NC, and then made chief while I was on board, and then ended up doing my last tour as the command career counselor for Naval Station Pearl Harbor, where I made senior chief. Retired to Michigan from Hawaii without any, there was no internet at the time because it was 30 years ago. Yeah. So, and you couldn't do job interviews over the phone from Hawaii. So I went to Michigan, but I was much better prepared when I went to be successful.
So we talked about that a little bit before the show as well. You had a successful transition. In particular, you were able to translate a lot of your Navy experiences, which we just learned are many and varied, into college credits, and you've had successful job placement since then. Tell me a little bit about your career and what wisdom you could impart on those who are seeking jobs right now, having recently transitioned out of active duty.
Well, the best advice I received before I retired was from another career counselor who encouraged me to have my credits or my Navy experience and schools go through what was then Navy campus. Now, I don't know what it is today because, as I said, it was 30 years, but I'm certain the Navy has something now where you can take your college credits and have or not college credits, well, college credits and your experience in the service, and have it evaluated and have college credits assigned. I ended up taking 3 CLEPs and a GRE and ended up with a bachelor's degree because of all the training that the Navy had given me. So
that's fantastic.
The first thing that told me was that, the college experience might be great, but the experience and the training you get in the Navy is equal to the school or the education you may get in college. So when I got out with a bachelor's degree, I went to Michigan, and the first job I ever received was working at a college itself, which I found kind of ironic because I never actually attended a college class in a college. So that made it interesting. But I also found out, went and found, I was doing resumes and found that I wasn't able to really equate what I had done in the Navy and translate it successfully into a resume. I think part of that is because I didn't understand what a resume was at the time. Resume is nothing more than an advertisement. And just like an advertisement that you see in the newspaper or you see online, it's got to grab the reader's attention. So I learned how to do that. I learned what the important parts of a resume were. And I also learned how to translate what I'd done in the Navy to make me, more attractive to employers. And I think a lot of veterans don't understand when they get out of the military how much experience they have that is valuable to an employer. For example,
absolutely.
Every military person who has a successful career is reliable. You show up for work on time. You're accountable for your actions. You know how to manage. If you were a petty officer, you managed others. So you've got management experience. You're trainable. You're team-oriented rather than being self-centered. All of those things are very attractive to corporations. I'll give you an example. Before I came on this program, I just did a quick Google search for employers hiring veterans. And the one company that jumped right out at me was Amazon. And Amazon actively goes after veterans. And the reason is not because it provides good optics for Amazon. That's a nice byproduct. Amazon has such a high pace and needs reliable people that the first place they'd probably go would be looking for a veteran, because veterans are reliable. Number one thing.
Yeah, right. Hardworking, reliable, and terrific work ethic. You know, gosh, from being a Navy career counselor to being an expert in resume writing to doing a career in higher education, I think, Kevin, you have a wealth of information to offer any listeners out there, any veterans who are job seeking, or watchstanders and civilians who are out there trying to help veterans find work. I think from the sound of it, I'll bet you've been a mentor to many in the past. Can people reach out to you and contact you if they have any questions or if they're seeking advice?
They're more than welcome to. I can be reached at my email address. It's KX, as in X-ray, Patrick, Patrick, @yahoo.com. And I'd be more than happy to answer any and all inquiries, and whatever they need.
Kevin, what a great resource you will be for veterans, Northeast Florida and beyond. So thank you so much for being on our show. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, Nick. And if I can be of any help in the future, you just let me know.
Thank you. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of From the C-Suite to the C-Suite. That was Kevin Patrick. He had lots of information to share, and he gave his email address if anyone wants to reach out to him and ask for their advice. The Firewatch is Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide, and there's a role for everybody. Join us today as a watchstander. Learn the risk signs of veterans in crisis, learn how to ask veterans if they need help, and how to get them the resources they need. There's a role for everybody. Visit thefirewatch.org. Thank you again. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Veterans United. The Firewatch is Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. There's a role for everybody. Join us as a watchstander. Visit thefirewatch.org and learn to identify the risk signs of veterans in crisis, how to ask veterans if they need help, and how to get veterans the help they need. Together, we will end veteran suicide. The Firewatch, Northeast Florida's fight to end veteran suicide. Today is military... Okay, it was going so well.